Flight crew, please prepare for takeoff. At this time, I'm going to ask that you fasten your seatbelts.
Richard talks about the 41 as
it makes sense because it's fantasy. It's like God in an atom having this fantasy to expand and to create and to explore.
And then we're here to gain wisdom through exploring all kinds of things, all kinds of feelings. And to not worry about your dreams never coming true, that you're just here to dream. And it's through those dreams, you know, it's not about having them come true, it's that you can dream.
Yeah.
And then
I feel you're always saying with your son also, like, what else is possible? That's what I'm hearing here.
I love that question. You know, because, and when I did my reading with Cohen, he said to me, you're here to help other people bring their dreams into reality. That he said, your auric field literally supports other people's, you know, dreams coming to reality. And I have seen that in myself my whole life. I'm the hugest cheerleader and will help people. You know, if somebody says to me, I need this for my dream to come true, if I can do it, I'm like, oh, I'll help you with that, you know, because I want them. And I do. A lot of my clients are about, you know, they want to live their dreams. They want their dream life to be their reality. And my youngest son loves to say, live in the dream, live in the dream. You know, he'll do something and he'll send me a picture and he'll write just LTD. Live in the dream. LTD, baby. You know.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And I've been, you know, his biggest cheerleader, right? You know, or one of his biggest cheerleaders. His wife is certainly a big supporter. But yeah, you know, there's nothing that brings me more joy. And I love that. You know, I love when Cohen said your work field literally helps people's dreams come true. And those, you know, that I just love working with people on that. And then in Cheaton's I Ching, you know, book of lines, diminishing poor habits increases your fortune. By acknowledging what does not fulfill you, you begin to attract fresh resources and experiences. And we just talked about that, how by ending something and then everything opened up for me.
And I also feel that 55 in it, because victimization is a poor habit.
Right?
Sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. In search to be fulfilled, you into any potential experiences that might move you through a cycle from emptiness to accomplishment. Dreaming open doorways to experiences that bring satisfaction and completion. Endless fantasies that are self-sustaining. Existence was created when we fell in love with emptiness. Dreamy, spacey fantasy, hyperactive, anticipation. Oh, I love anticipation. I don't have the 41, but I feel anticipation so much. And I don't even then know why, because I don't know what's coming. That's anticipation. That's the fantasy. That's the dream. Or maybe it's activated somewhere. I don't know. Emanation, imagination, evaluating potential. Lifting up, lifting within limiting resources gives occasions for dreams and fantasies to arise.
I think that's probably John was always typing fast dramas and fantasies to rise.
Yeah. I feel the 55 in there too with the abundance, and I don't know why. And I'm just going to speak to it because In the period that I was alone with my daughter, I was very limited in my abundance, in my resources.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me very creative to still get everything that I wanted, or at least what my daughter needed, because she gave back to me that even though we had a hard time, and it was more because of her puberty and such, but she said, I always had enough. You just gave me everything. And I was like, oh, thank God she got that. Yeah. So it makes you very creative.
Totally. I feel like that. I feel, like that was true with my own kids growing up, that we had maybe limited, there were limitations,
Yeah.
and yet we lived so abundantly,
Right.
and I think that's something that I think about a lot, that I feel like my life is abundant in so many ways, but it really is an attitude of abundance.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
some people might say an attitude of gratitude, and there's that, but there's beauty everywhere in life.
That's the spirit of abundance. That's the spirit.
Yeah.
If you want to see it, it's there. It's sometimes so easy, right?
But even, even when I face challenges, I know that I have this awareness that I'm going to make it through.
Yeah.
Oh, there was something, this relates to something that was in the chart, because it was like, if you want this person near you in a crisis. And I've always said that, like, if the plane is going down, you want me on the plane.
Right.
Like, I'm great in a crisis. We're gonna, there's gonna be a morning after. The sun is gonna shine. There's gonna be a morning after. We're gonna get through this, and we're gonna love that we got through it at the end. It's gonna be a great story that we will share, that will nurture us and fill our lives up.
There's a gratitude in it.
It may not be fun when we're right in the middle of it.
No, if you're in the storm, no.
But it is true. I'm the person you want, because it relates to everything that we've already talked about, because it's like, I'll see the structure of how to get us through it.
Right.
And I hold the dream of success, through,
and the dream of abundance.
And the dream of abundance. Yeah. So I have to say that when I was doing this, I got a little overwhelmed.
I can only imagine, because it's a lot. You've done so much work. I was like, oh.
I got overwhelmed. I had to come back 2 or 3 times, because she even talked about Ceres and Vesta. And then I had this amazing thing with Vesta, because I had Vesta in Taurus, and then this crazy, let's see if I can find it real quick, graphic showed up in my life, that we were right in the moment of geometry of Vesta in Taurus, when I was this last week or something.
Okay.
So
it was a synchronicity for you to get this information.
It was such a synchronicity, but I have to say, I'd work a little bit and then I'd get overwhelmed, and I would be, like, talking through, like, sharing with you has made it all fun. But when I was doing the contemplation and looking everything up and cross-checking and looking at the weave and weaving it myself, I got overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It was very overwhelming. And I kept thinking, like, how does this help me understand my purpose in life? But then talking to you about it, I can see the keynotes throughout time,
Yeah. You can relate to it now by stories, again,
Yeah.
by sharing. I think that is the key for everyone, to look at their chart and to look at all the books that are tools for us to be able to recognize them, but you still always have to relate them to yourself, because these are all like general lines, but how do they play out in your story, in your narrative? You know, that's different for everyone. Even though it's still there, that one-liner is still there, the Cheatham Parker book is still there. But
Yes.
somewhere in that story, it's there. It's not just
Yes.
that one line. Yeah.
I thought that when I read about Vesta, I was really kind of blown away, because
Tell
Vesta
me,
is a
because I
path.
don't know anything about these, what are they, stars, or they are
Asteroids, yeah.
asteroids? Yeah.
So Vesta is the path of service. It's sacred, what you're devoted to, and how do you keep this light alive in your life? And so for me, it's the 23.4. And the 23 as assimilation, stabilizing, peeling away the non-essential, reveals what's substantial, standing up for your truth in face of adversity, or stepping away from your straightforward path and considering yourself obliged to take some kind of action, the great need for speech skills. And it can also be, it's the gate of assimilation, splitting apart, potential ability to put language around the concepts that come out of the 43. Express individual insights that inject new and innovative ways of thinking into society, often misunderstood and treated as outsiders, genius to free. Their expression can be totally out of place and socially inappropriate. Eliminate intolerance by waiting to be invited to share their knowing clearly. So I really had to laugh about this one, because it ties to some of the other things about the innovative ways of thinking, and bringing something new to the world through this kind of genius freak energy. But
it's ahead of its time. That if you have that channel, that's ahead of its time. So they really have to wait, otherwise then it's not being recognized and it's being thrown away. Yeah.
And I taught people. I've taught writing. I've taught people how to speak their truth for 30 years. And even in the way that I teach, I mean, in the 90s, I realized, it was a very interesting thing. My youngest son said to me, because I would bring them to all they played sports all year round. Whatever sport was in, they were playing it. They were always involved. And I would drive them and I would sit there at their practice, whatever. But I always had a stack of papers, And my youngest son, who's Aries, he said, "You're not looking at me."
Because Aries wants to be looked at. It's me.
You come to my practice and you're giving your energy to all these students. I don't know who they are. You're here for me.
Oh.
And I really, I listened to him and I was taking it to heart. And I really it started me on this major contemplation. And I started to think about, okay, well, do the students that I'm spending all my time writing all this feedback to, are they actually taking it in? Are they appreciating it? What I really noticed was, no, not so much. I was like, oh, wow, this is a waste of energy. Okay, well, how can I do this differently?
So that they can hear. Yeah.
And so then I started experiencing what could they hear. And eventually I stopped writing on papers altogether. It took me about a year to come to this. And so I did this great experiment. I remember it was such a daring experiment in the 90s that, I'm a writing teacher and I'm not writing on people's papers. So what I did was I'd make appointments with them, and I would do it during class time. So it wasn't extra work. So we would have a couple weeks where they were working on their writing. And while they were doing that, I was meeting with each one of them. And we would sit there and read their papers together.
Wow.
And I would give them feedback. I'd ask them questions. And then I started, so that went really well, because then they were actually taking the feedback and integrating it. And then we'd meet again, and we could see like the before and the after, and they could feel a sense of pride because they had done it. It wasn't me telling them what to do. We had a conversation, and then they were able to integrate. So they were developing self-esteem and self-worth, because they could see that they did the work. It wasn't me telling them what to do and them doing it. We had a conversation and they implemented. So then, but then there were things like, well, how do I teach them commas, or, there's still some basics. Well, I would sit in my office and I would devise these games to have them look at their own work and how to do, how to tease out certain patterns in their own writing. And I would just make up these games, and then I would bring the games to class and say, oh, take out something you wrote, we need at least 2 pages. I want you to find these things, highlight them, or I would have them do things with manipulatives so that they would tear their writing apart, and then they would see, oh, a comma goes right there. Like, yay! So instead of me, sitting at soccer practice putting commas in, I was showing them through a game how to do it. And, I feel like that was innovation,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And empowerment.
Absolutely.
And there was something else with this one, the great need for speech skills, to be able to articulate, because I'm teaching them in a whole new way. And, they were 12, 13, 14 years of education. No one had ever done this with them. And so, I had to be able to communicate how this is going to work, because, they were used to some other, I was the freak who was saying, no, I'm not going to write on your paper. I'm not going to show you where to put the commas, or I'm going to show you how to figure out how to put your own commas.
Yeah, because then they can do it themselves when you're not around anymore.
Right.
You make it sustainable for them. Yeah.
Right. So I was, I could really relate with the Vesta in my chart.
Yeah.
As a expression of my purpose. And then the series, because you had said something to me the other day, we were talking, and you talked about the 2 aligned with your whatever, and it was so true. And then I'm like, oh, I have the 2 in my chart as series.
I have the 2.3 in my SQ, but in series it means something else. So I'm curious.
Do what you love, what nurtures you, and what nurtures you nurtures others. So it's the gate of direction of the self. Like,
it's a driver. Yeah, in human design, it's the driver, the only place where the real driver sits.
So how powerful to have the 2 in series, which is, it's like a double, iteration of that. So I had not ever really looked at the 2 very much. So that was like, oh, I really related to that, and I could see how series was.
Yeah, and we talked about your moon, and now I see it, your personality moon, 14.6, and now you knowing the 2.2. Did you figure out yet how that worked in your life?
Well, I think my mother said to me one time, I was in my 30s, and she said to me, you always know where you want to go, and you're heading down your track, and then you get sidetracked because somebody else will ask you for help, and you put down what you're doing to go and help them, and you get them through their journey, and then you come back to your own life and you've forgotten where you are.
Yeah, that's the dislocation of the 2, the shadow. It's cosmically funny.
I was like, oh wow, like that has been a pattern. But yeah. I loved where I was going, and I loved helping them. And then when I came back to my life, a lot of times, that wasn't so important to me anymore. Which, I would orient in the moment, find my new.
You would reorientate.
Yeah. So I loved that, looking at this series, working with my moon. And why is that popping up on my screen? We're not here to do all the work, rather hold the gift of coordinating where and how the creative process can be directed. I mean, that totally fits with me because I see the whole structure. I see how it works. I felt like that was being a way shower for others, with that whole channel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if we have to see those asteroid kind of like they are there, but they're not fixing like a channel. So you have both open. So you have the 2 open and you have the 14 open. So you really get wise about that direction and where the energy needs to go, where the attention needs to go. Yeah.
She in her book, Kim Gould's Asteroid. I don't know if
I have it. I have it in Kindle.
Yeah, cool. So she does talk about that. She said that, let me see if I can find the quote, that the asteroid layer in human design is a historical map for stripping away the outgrown limits of patriarchal narratives and recovering our original selves. I loved that, that quote from her.
And it's kind of cosmically funny again that she is going into these asteroids, and that I bought her book when I got the email. I because it was on sale, the 26 likes a bargain.
Yeah, totally.
I immediately bought it on Kindle. But I hadn't had time to go into it yet. Well, I had the time, but I made other priorities. That's the truth.
Yeah, so I like what she's saying, how they're a part of the weave. They're activations. Maybe they're not as strong as the planets, but they're activations that are there. They're
the details.
Yeah,
they're part of your storyline.
They're part of your story.
You can add them. Yeah, like sprinkles on your cake.
Like sprinkles on your cake. Well, you sent to me this morning the nodes, and I would love for us to look at your nodes. I had to redo them in my own little grid. I'm still screen sharing.
You want to start?
There we go.
Yeah, now I can look more easily at you. Yeah, please share what you found, because when I read those lines, like for you, it even said like if your 49 is in the south node and when your 4 is in whatever your north node, and I was like, why aren't these details in mine? It's still so mystical to me.
I was thinking, I opened your email this morning and I thought, but I was getting confused because I needed it to be like north node,
visual.
So I restructured it all so I could be with you, But I would love to hear what you thought, because then when I saw, I was like, oh, she's got the 35 and the 5, and that makes so much sense. I would love to hear her talk about this, because having the 5 and 35 is my life's work. And
that's so cosmically funny again, right?
Right.
I saw that too.
So what did you get from
my notes?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? Yeah, so let me read it a little bit. I will try my glasses on. Maybe it helps. Maybe it's not. With a computer, it's sometimes, no, I can't see it. So the 35 says the need for interaction when we're dealing with the 35th gate, we have the gate of progress. And the gate of progress is a key element of the human experiential way. Well, we've talked about the 35 a lot, so it is, after all, the gate of change, and it's part of the channel of transitoriness. When we look at the 35th gate, what we're looking at is, by design, progress cannot exist in a vacuum and is dependent on interaction. Think about this within the nodal context. Remember that the nodes represent the stage upon which the life is lived out. That is, the individual life is lived out with the potential of fulfilling the purpose through that. That is, living out one's profile. But what that means is that all around you is going to be this frequency of the 35. And this is all about the need for interaction. Not simply a need, but a dependency on interaction. So you're going to have an environment in which there is not enough interaction. As long as there's not enough interaction, then you don't ultimately get to progress. And it's again one of the things to understand about a nodal environment, that the expression of the nodal environment through the gate, that is what you're looking at, through that gate. It's a potential that works both ways. And the funny thing is, while I'm reading it right to you now, the images started coming in. And you know who I'm thinking about, right? And the progress is for me that I could step into my leadership. Absolutely. Absolutely. It even gives me chills now. It is so easy. Now, I'm reading it now again, and I read it before multiple times and I didn't get it. And now suddenly poof.
It's being in the auric presence of someone else. It really, whew, yeah.
And I do see a lot of non-communication. And I've always said in my life, like I shared it with you before when I was 6, that I said that love was the most important thing in life. And then my father said, no, it's money and power. And I had a little discussion at the age of 6. And I didn't want to believe him. And the second thing that came a little bit later when I got about beginning of puberty was the communication, and still is for me very important. Communication is after love, or maybe even before love, is the communication. And the most difficult thing is also the communication.
Totally.
And then we get into these triggers and the victim modes and the pointing towards and not taking the accountability, not taking your own responsibility. And that's where things go wrong. Well, there is no wrong, but that's where the chaos is. I'm feeling the 36. Yeah.
But I love how having, to me, I'm really being with you with the 35 in the nodal position, and I feel the connection because I have the 35 in my evolution.
Right.
And this is all about evolving, and to be in the node or to be in the evolution with the 35 it's the real deal. It's like,
yeah. But for you, it's being in that interaction. But for me, it's being around that interaction.
what an amazing distinction. Wow. So that's your,
or for me, is this the personality? Oh, wow, it's seeing. So for me, it's seeing the interaction or not. Yeah. And then it says, in other words, yes, there will be those who will progress because they have the necessary interaction, but the environment is going to be filled with many people that are looking for interaction or are dependent on interaction, because without it, they will not find their progress. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that if you're carrying this note that it is you. What it means is that the world in which you have the greatest potential to be able to fulfill what is your purpose in this life. And then the fifth gate, waiting. Now, when we go to the other side of the polarity, which is my north node, to the fifth gate, we get to the gate of waiting. But the fifth gate in the sacral center has an extraordinary importance in all of design. When I say all of design, I don't mean simply human design, but the design of forms. All forms carry the fifth gate or the potential of the fifth gate. That is the 15-5, the channel of being in the flow. It is a universal force. So when we're dealing with the fifth gate, we are dealing with the inherent pattern of things. When you're looking at this gate, the structure is the fundamental attunement to natural rhythms, waiting as an active state of awareness. Now, of course, the fact is that if waiting is the active state of awareness, then not waiting is going to be what the general environment is going to look like. In other words, there's going to be a background environment through the 535 that can seem to be quite chaotic, an environment where no one is waiting. The classic example of a generating theme trying to manifest that nobody is waiting. It says more, but I want to stop here.
Wow, trying to manifest that nobody is waiting. Whoa.
And of course, that part is a little difficult to me because it's new. It's the North Node. It's something I grow into. So what I'm seeing, because it's in my personality, which Leanne said is seeing, the personality side is seeing in the environment. The other one is really the environment itself. It's the stage. So I'm probably seeing that people are just running around with no head or something like that.
Yeah, but I love the power of this is we're dealing with the inherent pattern of things. So being in the flow is a universal force in the pattern of things, the inherent pattern of things. Being attuned to the natural rhythms, waiting as an active state of awareness. And that reminds me of the seasons and being completely in tune with the seasons.
Yeah. And again, we come back to that cycle, what we talked about, patterns and cycles. And when we talk about patterns and cycles, we're talking about the cosmic plan, about the universal laws, and the program that we got in this with this vessel. Yeah. What I'm also feeling with that 5 is because the moon has always been kind of well, I was a little girl. I can remember one of the first thing I can remember that each night when there was a full moon or the moon was almost full, I would just sneak out of my bed, go behind my curtain to look outside, but no light could come in because then my parents would see. And I would always draw even the moon, like where would the craters.
Oh yeah, craters. Oh,
So I would even, what is that?
Yeah, craters.
Yeah, so I would draw the moon and I would draw like where the craters would be, and there was this, mystic, like how was the moon turning? Would they change? Would the craters change? But they never did. So it came to my awareness that the moon doesn't turn. later I can watch the videos and read the books all about it, but as a little girl I could not. But I was fascinated by the moon. And when I think about the moon and the cycles and the feminine cycles, even though I have I don't know if it's the same thing in English, but I have like this spiral, so you have low cycle. But even though I have that, each month when it's the full moon, I can still feel my belly and I still have a little blood, which is not possible, but it is still there. So even though I'm trying to get out of the cycle, because I'm going towards menopause, the moon still shows me that cycle. So there is something there. And maybe even with the transits, that's a lot of people, especially in business, they're pushing the manifestation. But if you wait for the right moment when the cosmic alignments are working for you, it doesn't take as much time, or it doesn't take as much effort, doesn't take as much energy. And now I can relate it to the sacral. Yeah, so that was a little rambling. Maybe we're getting somewhere.
No, I love it because as I was listening, I was thinking of when you were talking about the moon. When I lived in Tucson, for 14 years, I sat in a Cherokee women's full moon circle.
Oh, wow.
And we went through two quarters of the medicine wheel. We got halfway through 14 years. And through that time, I was especially connected to the cycle of the month and the moon, and feeling the energy of the moon building and then releasing, and layered onto that was a time when I was living way out in the country and spending a lot of time in silence with the nature around me. And I could even feel the shift of the wind, and I would know, oh, the wind just moved. We're moving into fall. Or hearing the bees for the first time in the spring. Oh, there are the bees. No more frost this year. And just being so, and I feel like that's part of what this
I'm supposed to see. Yeah. Yeah. And another thing just came to me, what I'm also experiencing when the moon is full. I sleep less and I have more vivid dreams. Like the moments that I was able to astral travel or lucid dream were mostly around full moon. Yeah.
And so how is that an expression of being in the flow of the universal force?
When I relate it now, when I think about the 35 and my hunger for emotional experiences and relationships and such, it was a chaotic and hectic lifetime until my burnout, which happened when I was about 42. Yeah, about. So then I was, no energy left, and then I had my bigger awakening in those, I don't know exactly which year it was. I think it was 2016, 17 that I was in my burnout, and then I quit my job, and then I started going back to what I really wanted. So maybe going back to my flow. I started listening for the first time to YouTube, and one of my first videos was about frequencies, about Reich, about Tesla, and all these other people, that everything was frequency and vibration. And I was like, whoa. And I went back to my quantum physics interests. And like a week after that, I had this awakening dream that I saw myself in this golden light, and a face appeared like a Buddha face and said, "Ye are God," you know? And then when I woke up that morning and I thought about that dream, I just started crying. I felt the grace. I felt my 22 coming in, like I was flooded with love. And I was like, whoa, you know, I felt like cosmic. and everything after that became like in synchronicity. So maybe that flow is the synchronicity of life, that everything happens at the right time, at the right moment, for good or for bad, because that's just the label.
Right.
And I'm not searching for things anymore. I also feel that the 35 is kind of searching for experience and searching for that adventure, maybe even searching for the pain and the drama, because it's connected to my 36. And then I got so tired of it that I was like, nah, done, been there, done that, got a t-shirt, bye-bye. I'm just gonna wait for things to come to me, so I'm being able to respond to life when it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then on your design side,
the 4526, my north node is the 26 influence, and the 45 is exclusion, it says for me. 45 materialism. This is a nodal environment that is deeply tribal. That is, you're dealing with your tribal gates, the 26th gate, the taming power of the great, out of the heart center, and the 45th gate, gathering together out of the throat center, the voice, the expression of the tribe, the gate of the king, the queen, the pasha. When we're dealing with the 45th gate as a nodal environment, this is the naturally and generally beneficial attraction of like forces. One of the most interesting things about this environment is how possessive this environment is. The 45th gate is the voice that says, I have or I don't have. This is a nodal environment where that is the voice of the people. The voice of the people are the ones who are shouting, I have, but most of the people are shouting, I don't have. It's the natural and general beneficial attraction of like forces. Well, yes, it's beneficial, but it doesn't mean that it is what the environment is. That the environment is in fact an environment of working on the possibility that the attraction of like forces can be generally and mutually and naturally beneficial. So when you're dealing with the 45 as a nodal environment, this is the gate of the gatherer. This is all about the money line. It's all about materialism. So you have a very, very material environment. And in that material environment, there are the haves and the have-nots. One of the things to recognize is that it's always the have-nots that are always seeking the natural and general beneficial union that gathering together. Again, not a mistake. General beneficial ultimately can transform their material place. But again, if you have the 45th as a node, then you have to see that you're going to be dealing with a material environment. The materialism is going to be the theme that is there. And particularly the whole question of who possesses what and the tension in terms of what that environment over the basic materials necessary in life. Shall I wait for that one?
wow, I mean, I can see just, from stories you've told, how you lived that
Yeah,
as a
please share.
South node.
Because it's unconscious to me. I can't see it. I need your reflection.
Well, I think that as a south node, as the place you start from and the place you're moving out of, before this was, you come from before your burnout, up to your burnout. Because you were in a service industry, you know, doing makeup for other people. So the attraction of like forces, like who saw you as the person to help them be their most beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And that you worked, and then there you had your daughter, and you were working so hard to provide.
Right.
So then who did you need?
True.
To serve so that you could make money.
Yeah, I shared with you that if my money was almost gone, a client would call me, can you do my makeup? And I would just have enough. Wow.
Yeah. So I can see the 45 in your pre-burnout self, because materialism was the theme. And
yeah, there were people with money. They all had the money to pay for a makeup artist, and I would sell like these luxury products and advise them and such, and they all had more money than me.
And you know, and then, you know, you have a hole in your schedule and your daughter needs something.
Yeah.
So you take that client because, you know, it's all about the materialism.
Yeah.
So then, you know, then shifting into your North Node design.
Shall I read it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Aggressiveness. The other side of the polarity is the 26th gate, the taming power of the great, the gate of the egoist. This is the maximization of the power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. Now, one of the things about this maximization of the power of memory is that it is an environment where there is a great deal of potential aggressiveness, and potential aggressiveness in the sense of trying to shape the way in which the community operates. The way in which community is shaped can be shaped in a number of ways. For example, the 26th gate can bring a great deal of propaganda, salesmanship, that kind of influencing transmission to impact the way in which the community thinks about itself or thinks about the things that it needs. And remember, in this polarity, we have the materialism as one of the deepest themes. The other things is to be very clear about in the 26th gate and its role as a defender in the immune system. That is, the 26th gate is related to the thymus gland that designs our immune system in the first years of our lives. And it's also the T cell. The T cells are literally the soldiers of the immune system that go out and protect us against those invading bacteria and viruses and so forth. It's very important to see that an environment that is the 26th gate also has an environment that has the potential of violence, the potential of physical coercion. And here is the potential of coming into a nodal environment that can be very aggressive, that can be filled with a great deal of lack of value. Remember that the ego, the heart center, the majority of humanity has this center open. It means that the majority of humanity suffers from the not-self strategy of the open heart center, which is not seeing themselves as being worthy. They always have to prove themselves, not having in their lives consistent willpower. So those themes are themes that you can apply to the environment. Remember that it's so important to realize the difference between profile and nodes, not just profile and nodes, but to recognize that the nodes are different from any other activation in the chart. Yeah, all the activations in the chart, with the exception of the nodes, come from physical objects that are physically interfering with the neutrino stream and changing the information. The thing to recognize about the nodes is that they are positional. So when you're looking at your nodal environment, you're not looking at a physical imprint of you. You're looking at your connection to a larger imprint, the imprint of an environment. It's not even that. It's to say that in your environment there isn't exclusively only the 2645. What it's saying is that what you're going to be attuned to in the environment around you, you are going to be attuned to the ones who have or have not. You're going to be attuned to the ones who try to coerce or change the way in which community sees itself. But who you are and the potential of you, who you are, is fulfilled within that environment.
Wow, so powerful. I mean,
and to note that is my earth, my evolution, and my purpose. 45, 26. So that is the other way around. But go ahead.
No. I mean, so double, like
Yeah.
double whammy in your chart, right?
Yeah. Help.
Super emphasis. What I love about this is, I mean, he uses, this is raw, right?
Yeah.
He uses the word aggressive, but when you were reading, I was hearing persistence, and energy. And I feel like your work with the archetype Akash was, and even our conversations, because we were just talking to contemplate our own design,
right?
Just moving our contemplations to a partnership to potentially learn from each other's, wisdom. And then from that, you were like, oh, can we share this with the world? And I was like, sure, why not? If it helps people to see. And that's kind of always been, for as long as I've known you, the spirit of you, which is that to share with the world that we are all living our design, consciously or unconsciously, we're doing it. And we all have this wisdom through our life experience. Yeah. And I've seen you as shining a light on that. Every person's experience has value. Absolutely. To the collective, not only to themselves. And it's important to hear the stories that when we hear other people's stories of their life and what their design is, it helps us to live our own, to be as an encouragement to embrace our own design and our own uniqueness, and how the courage of sharing impacts us all, gives us all courage, lifts us all up. And so I can see that in in the gate of the 26, because you have this huge heart. And I know you want us all to live our best lives.
Yeah.
And you give your energy so freely in collaboration and partnership. You're so present. And then, what you did with our conversations, and you made that video, I was like, I'm so blown away. It's just one example of you living the 26. Somebody else might use the word, well, that was aggressive to put that video together. But to me, it wasn't aggressive. It was just like this relentless pursuit of helping other people.
Yeah, that is
encouraging other people.
Because it makes us very vulnerable. We're sharing our personal conversation, but even though we are being vulnerable, because we can be judged on any channel where we post it, but I don't care, because I'm telling my truth and you're telling your truth, and there are many truths out there, and they can be of assistance or service for anyone.
Right. And our truths, how I live my design, how you live yours might trigger someone else. Yeah. But if they hear it in the context of, oh, well, that's her 26 in her North Node. Right. And, that triggers me because my North Node is something different. You know,
Yeah.
or that it might give somebody else, you know, to read the 26 as Ra wrote it could be a hard task. This isn't an easy one to read.
No.
You know, and to read that out loud and to know that maybe potentially one day you might put it on YouTube, you know, for everybody to hear. And to hear, oh, you know, how many times does he say aggressive? Aggressive.
Yeah, it was the word that made me do exactly that, like aggressiveness. I'm not about aggressiveness. I don't like aggressiveness. But when I'm thinking about the defenders, it's like a positive word, but still it feels like this push. Because defenders, they're on guard, and we're talking about vulnerability.
Right. But there's, you know, if you think about, some people might say it's aggressive, but I mean, what I was hearing was persistence.
Yeah.
Where is the 26th gate?
It's in the heart center, in the ego.
In the ego.
Maybe we should take the God code.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, you know, because then in the God code, isn't it desire?
Let me see. Yeah, desire.
So, but as we're reading what Ross said about the 26 and his use of aggressive, I was like, that's persistence.
Yeah.
That's determination. And think about it, for somebody with a defined will, they are so grounded, you know, if they're living the self, that is a defined thing, you know, and when you don't come off your mark, you know, people can perceive you as aggressive.
Yeah.
You know, and doesn't mean you're attacking. It just means you're committed, determined.
Yeah.
And
it's willpower. Divine will.
Persistence.
Yeah, persistence. Yeah, true. Yeah.
So when I read this, I was like, oh, this is her bringing the archetype of Akash to the world. This is her, you know, looking at our conversations and thinking, wow, this might have value for someone else. So I'm going to courageously ask Simone, would you be courageous with me? Could we share this with the world? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Because, you know, if this will help if our conversation helps anybody.
Yeah. Even if it's just one, I learned it from Tony Robbins. Robinson, somebody else. He said, if you're not doing it for the one, then who are you doing it for? And there was like this one liner again that just stays in my head.
Covered with
feels so right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, the purpose of our conversation is so that we grow, we understand ourselves, we experience ourselves, and we're doing it in partnership, which for me lights me up because of my culture. For you, putting it on the YouTube lights you up because it's your line 6.
Yeah.
Bring the example to living the future now. And when he says that it's an influencing transmission to impact the way in which the community thinks of itself or thinks about the things it needs. Wow.
Yeah.
To be persistent at that is service.
Yeah.
To me, really.
Yeah, and I have it in which line do I have over here? Line 3. Bonds made and broken. Trial and error.
Broken, you know?
Experimental. Well, that's what it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're
and
trying.
In a sense, trying to shape the way in which the community operates. So one of the things that my whole relationship with you has been, this has been a scene because through the archetype Akash, what you really wanted people to do was to understand that they are living the transmission through their life. Yeah. And in a sense, you were shaping the way a community operates to value themselves and their lived experience, whether they're in the self or the non-self, through bonds made and broken, that whole line 3 expression.
Yeah, and then I even feel the 4-6 and especially the 4 in it, because when I connect, even if I just connected for the archetype Akasha, there are in my, just let me say, in my consciousness, they still are there. I can still remember each conversation. I made a connection for life, even though if I might never speak or see them.
Right.
I made a connection on the screen by them sharing their story and me listening and giving some reflections or acknowledgement to them. Yeah, in a way how they see themselves, because like you, I want to empower, and I don't even want that. It's just something that I do.
It's
What I
just
feel
how
that's
you
easy.
live.
Yeah, it just
And
feels.
that's the living of your design, you know,
Yeah.
without really thinking about it. I love where he says the maximization of the power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. And you could almost miscue that nurturing of community, you know, of continuity. What is continuity? It is the continuing of the community, you know, it is the, through the stories that people told you through the archetype Akash, or through how we talk about how we see these activations in our chart, we share our memories in a really powerful way to nurture people being committed to their own understanding of their ways, of their design, of their life.
Yeah, I thank you so much for translating it for me, because like you said, how Ra wrote his transmission and then me having to translate it in Dutch for me to get it. Sometimes like the sentence you just mentioned, I just cannot, I can't receive it because it's too difficult. The language, the way that it is written, I can't grasp it because if I translate it just in Dutch, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And then here it says in the book of lines, it's the shadow is pride and can be manipulative, cowardly, or boastful. And its gift is artfulness, and then the city is invisibility. And then with the line 3, it says being prepared, being clear in your motivations and how to exercise them well. You succeed with or without the help of others when you overcome your fears and doubts. Well, I had to overcome some doubts and some fears to just go online and just be vulnerable.
Right?
Yeah.
I love that. I'm wondering I wonder what Richard says in his circuitry book. Let me see if I can find it quickly.
Yeah, and then when you're looking for that, the 26.6, which is my purpose, it's being poised. Creative energy is released from a place of inner equilibrium. Accumulating and utilizing energy wisely needs you to be balanced. This balance is internal.
You know what channel the 26 is in?
With the 44.
Oh.
Channel of Enterprise. In the I Ching, it's called accumulation, fortitude.
Oh, it's the tribal circuit. Okay, it's 78. I wasn't going far
This
enough.
direct nature harnesses willpower and commits to great accomplishments and substantial material rewards. Sorry.
Oh, I love how Richard says this. He says, quick reference theme, people whose goal is to attain maximum reward for minimum output. And like, I see myself because I was working smarter, not harder.
Right.
Represented by the architect of the salesperson, these people can take something that is only a raw potential, twist it around in their fingers to transform it into something marketable. I mean, look at how you took our raw conversations and made them into something really artful. I was blown away. The gate of the trickster who has the confidence to manipulate any situation to their own advantage. Sometimes they get caught. But, that's kind of like a line 4 theme, right? because with the line 4,
Yeah.
you know, we use our social situations to benefit.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I see
It's the
it when,
opportunity for the 4th line to do that. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a bit of a 4th line thing. These people naturally demand that they are rewarded for their skills. I haven't seen that in you.
Maybe because it's open.
Yeah, maybe.
And it's even something I struggle with sometimes because I want to be of service. I find it very hard to ask the amount of currency that I ask. But people really have to tell me, but you have studied for like 5 or 6 years now, and you've done all these courses, you have dived in so deep, and you've done this, and you have done that. How much money is that? And I go like, yeah, a lot. Well, it has to come back. And
Right.
if you're not sustained, then you can't keep up with the work that you're putting out and doing for all those people. So it's again that that infinity sign, the arigato, that what flows in has to come out, and what goes out has to come in.
I love this. I think this has some, Richard says, like the 54, they want to rise up in the hierarchy, but their ultimate goal is to get to a position where they don't have to work at all. And I remember you saying, like, I just am, you know, like you just apply your energy to what you love. It's not really work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, she's mastered that. The 26 has tremendous strength as a survivor, which I think that's a keynote for you because you have survived, and being able to find shortcuts in and out of most situations. And you have the 54, the 44, right?
I don't have the 44. You have.
I have the 44. So when we're together,
Yeah.
we have great awareness and people skills.
Yeah, true.
They may have the presence and skill to translate something, but without the 44, they don't know to whom, when, or where. And so when we're together, that all happens.
Our electromagnetics are wild.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Super cool. Oh my gosh, I have loved our discussion of your North nodes. I'm gonna take a look at mine, and I hope we can.
Oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock again.
I know, it's time for you to go, and I have a client soon.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh.
What a powerful day. I mean, to think about this too, because she said, Kim says that, you know, this is part of when she looks at someone's purpose, that she's taking in these the nodes. And I think that was so powerful today. I can see this in your life as part of, you know, the weave of your purpose here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the translation again. Sometimes these words are difficult for me because in Dutch they somehow don't make sense, and maybe that has to do with the frequency behind those words. Mm-hmm. But it really bothers me that I get everything in my chart except those nodes, you know.
Well, I think it's a beautiful design, and I'm, you know, I'm kind of really touched because you interviewed me for Archetype Akash
For the 35.
For the 35, you know, which I have the 535, Life's Work and Evolution. And now I'm really kind of just getting it, like the power of that being your North and South node on your design side. So I feel even more blessed to have had that conversation with you.
Yeah. So next time you have to tell me how you experienced the 535 even more. Because then, I don't know, with our conversation, it's just, we light up something in each other and it creates this bigger awareness. I just love it. So thank you.
I love you, sister.
Love you too. And then